Hey Canucks fans, welcome to Clay's Canucks Commentary, my second video of the day. Today is Monday, October the 1st. I'm Clay Emo at Canuck Clay on Twitter. I'm at Clayton Emo on Instagram. And this is my Canucks and my Atlantic Division take, all in one take. Earlier today I talked about Sam Gagner being surprisingly cut by the Vancouver Canucks. Surprising to some, not surprising to others. Those that were in the surprise camp, they point to his contract, 2 years left, $3.15 million on each of those 2 years, and the fact that he's a veteran, and the fact that he actually still has offensive skills to bring to the table, so to speak. Those that weren't surprised or were happy to see this cut, they talked about the fact that the Canucks management actually went through with one of their pre-season, pre-training camp promises of if young guys beat out older guys, veteran guys for spots, that those young guys are going to be given a shot. Now, whether that means that's Leipzig or Goldobin or Tyler Mott beating out a guy like Sam Gagner, maybe that's what we're talking about here. But it'll be very interesting to see if Gagner clears waivers, and or if he doesn't, or if he does clear waivers, if he makes his way back up to the big club later this season. But he'll be fighting against guys like Adam Gaudette and Jonathan Dahlin to be the first call up when it comes to the forward, Darren Archibald when it comes to the first forward position. So we'll see what happens. I'm sure we'll hear a lot of fallout, a lot about it in the next couple of days as the Canucks look to open their season on Wednesday night against Calgary. And now their 23-man roster is set. I'll talk about that more tomorrow. For this second video of the day, I want to continue my quick prediction series. I've done the Pacific Division, I've done the Central Division. Today we move to the Eastern Conference and we start off with the Atlantic Division. And like always, I put a poll out on Twitter, asked for your response, got over 200 responses, and basically I said who's going to win the Atlantic Division, and I gave 4 choices: Boston, Florida, Tampa, and Toronto. And not surprisingly, of course, these polls get biased or get skewed depending on who's asking. You know, of course, anytime I talk about a Calder Trophy winner, Pettersson's going to rise to the top of that poll question because I'm in Vancouver and most of my followers and watchers or viewers are Vancouver Canucks fans. So if you extend that a little bit, I think a lot of people still don't like Toronto, whether they think they get covered too much out here, they can't stand their fans, or they don't like the team for whatever reason, although I really like Toronto's team, which I'll talk about in a second. So in this poll of who's going to finish atop the Atlantic Division, it was basically 2-1 Tampa Bay over Toronto. So not bad. Tampa Bay had about 60% of the votes last time I checked. Toronto had about 30%, so there's the 2-1 ratio. And then the last 10% were kind of scattered between Florida and Boston. And speaking of teams that Canucks fans don't like, Boston is another one of those teams. So that's what Canucks fans, who at least the ones that responded to my Twitter poll, said: 2-1, 60% Tampa, 30% Toronto, and then the rest between Boston and Florida. So much like the Pacific Division, much like the Central Division, I see the 8 teams in the Atlantic Division really divided into 3 tiers. Of course, an upper tier, a middle tier, and a bottom tier. In the upper tier, you're looking once again at 2 teams, much like San Jose and Vegas in the Pacific, much like Winnipeg and Nashville in the Central. It is going to be, I think, a dogfight between Tampa Bay and Toronto. I give the edge to Tampa Bay just because over the past 5 years, they have been so strong. They have strength at every position. You have Stamkos and Kucherov up front. You have Victor Hedman on the point, and you have Vasilevsky in net. Those are strong, all-star players at every position. And they're still a fast team, a very skilled team. They're a joy to watch. And, they're 1 game away from making it to the Stanley Cup Finals last year. So there's Tampa Bay, number 1 and no big losses, not a lot of big departures from their team. So look for Tampa to win the division, narrowly beating out the Toronto Maple Leafs. Obviously, we know that their biggest acquisition was John Tavares. After ending months of speculation, returning home, and now you look at the depth of Toronto, especially down the middle, and it's very strong, super strong, between Tavares and then Austin Matthews, and then you have, of course, Nazem Kadri. So those are 3 unbelievably strong centers, and when you can play them together on the power play, do whatever you want. So that's pretty enviable right there. Their D-men, after Gardner and Riley, there's not a lot there. Anderson's pretty good in net, but obviously the strength of their team will be the forwards. Not so strong on D, although I've been hearing from a lot of the Toronto fans that their D will be just fine. We will see, but look for them to fight Tampa Bay all year for the top of the standings in the division, but I see them coming in second. So Tampa and Toronto are the top 2. Then in this middle conglomerate, I see 2 teams really, the 2 I mentioned, Florida and Boston. Florida played very well in the second half of last season, and they've added Mike Hoffman to their already impressive group of players, including new captain Alexander Barkov. You, of course, have Ekblad, and you have the wonderful goalie, my favorite, Roberto Luongo, still in net. So there's a lot of good pieces in Florida. There's a lot of excitement, and they're kind of like a favorite team out here in Vancouver because of that Luongo connection. I think a lot of Vancouver Canucks fans still follow the Florida Panthers. So they're a good team, like I said, finish off strong. They play a good, exciting style of play. So look for them to finish third in the division, just ahead of the Boston Bruins. I know Canucks fans hate Boston, but they are still a strong team. They actually performed very well last year. I see them dropping down a little bit because of the surge of Toronto and Florida. But I still see Boston coming in fourth, maybe earning a wild card spot. They still have guys like Bergeron and, of course, Brad Marchand. Yours are my favorite. They're still strong in net with Tuukka Rask. They have still Zdeno Chara still skating around. Pasternak, of course. Guys like Ryan Donato, who are expected to make a big move, and Charlie McAvoy in the back. So there's a lot of good young pieces still. They're not the youngest team ever, but they have enough young pieces to make it exciting. So I'd like to see Boston coming fourth. Then you look at the 5 bottom teams, and in order, I'm gonna go Buffalo, then probably Montreal, Detroit, and Ottawa. Those 4 teams that order could finish anywhere between 5 through 8. None of them are gonna make the playoffs, but again, Buffalo, Montreal, Detroit, and Ottawa. And the one thing you notice about each of these 4 teams, each of them have lost at least one really strong player, and they haven't really replaced them with a lot. With Buffalo, they lost, of course, Ryan O'Reilly, a mainstay of their team. Yes, they still have Rasmus Dahlin, they still have Jack Eichel, they still have Casey Middlestat, but I don't think it's enough to push them over the top yet into the playoff spot. They're improving. They're way better than they are maybe a couple years ago with those 3 guys I just mentioned. But Ryan O'Reilly will be a big loss. He played in all situations, so that's why Buffalo, I have them at number 5. Number 6, we have Montreal, a very dysfunctional franchise over the summer. Yeah, as if we can talk as in Vancouver, but still, they lost guys like Max Pacioretty, and Alex Galchenyuk. That's 2 big holes to fill on offense, and I don't think they addressed it, or they filled them as well as they might have wanted to over the summer. So that's why they still have Carey Price, of course, Shea Weber, who's going to be out a little bit with his injury. Still, Carey Price, will he rebound? I'm not sure. Even if he does, I still don't think he's good enough to carry his whole team. So look for Montreal to finish 6th. Then we have Detroit. Just heard the news in the last week or so that Henrik Zetterberg is retiring. Detroit's an old team. Their young guys haven't really stepped up. I don't know a lot about their young guys. I stand to be corrected. But I think Detroit's going to struggle this year, especially with the loss of Zetterberg. Look for them to finish 7th, just ahead of Ottawa Senators. Speaking of dysfunctional franchises, we know that they've turned over a lot of their team. Their biggest loss being Erik Karlsson, of course. Erik Karlsson being traded to San Jose for maybe not a lot back. We'll see how those guys do. But Karlsson's gone, along with Hoffman gone as well. We know Hoffman and Karlsson got into that, or their wives and girlfriends and fiancés got into that spat. So that's 2 big pieces that are missing from Ottawa. And I just think the fact that they've already pledged to go young, they say between 15 and 20 or 10 and 15 rookies in the lineup, which is a lot. I don't see them. I see them actually, battling Vancouver maybe for the bottom end of the standings. So there we go. 3 tiers, 8 teams. My order is Tampa Bay, Toronto, Florida, Boston, then Buffalo, Montreal, Detroit, and then Ottawa, bringing up the rear. Canucks fans, hockey fans, tell me what you think. Do you agree with my assessment? Do you agree that it's Tampa and Toronto at the top, or can the Florida or Boston break through and challenge them to win the division? And if it is Tampa and Toronto, which one of those 2 teams will emerge as victorious as the winner of the division? Comment on the bottom 4. Do you agree that Buffalo, Montreal, Detroit, and Ottawa are in that bottom 4, or can one of those teams rise up and challenge for a wild card spot? And if you still want to leave a comment on Sam Gagner, although I did a video about that earlier, you can do that here as well. Leave a comment below. I'd love to read, react, and reply as always. Thanks for watching. Don't worry, I won't do 2 videos a day going forward. I don't think anyone wants to see that, but a lot of news coming out today. Wanted to acknowledge it, and wanted to also continue my quick preview of my predictions for the standings in each division. That means, last but not least, Metropolitan Division tomorrow, and we'll talk about the Canucks opening roster, because we'll only be 1 day away from opening night. Have a great rest of the day. God bless, and go Canucks go.